Good evening, and welcome to Wilson Hall Auditorium. Please take a moment to locate your nearest emergency exit, and at this time, please stop texting and turn off your cell phone. There will be no intermission. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Good evening, distinguished guests, President King, Mrs. King, Dr. Tim Miller, Dr. Bruce E. Mitchell II, JMU Senior Leadership, JMU Women's Basketball Team and Head Coach Sean O'Regan, students, faculty, staff, family, friends, and Harrisonburg and Rockingham County community members. Good evening to our Honorable Mayor of Harrisonburg, Dina Reed. We extend an exceptional good evening to our keynote, Chamique Holdsclaw, and it is our pleasure to see you all this evening. My name is Camille Martin, and it is my pleasure to be your co-host for this evening. I am a junior sociology major with a concentration in health, medicine, and society, and a minor in African American diaspora studies from Richmond, Virginia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kofi Asare, and I am also delighted to be your co-host for this evening. I am a senior economics major and the current chapter president of the Xi Delta chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. This week marks the annual celebration of the national holiday honoring the life and accomplishments of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we are honored to shed light on his legacy by keeping his memory alive through this week's celebration. Dr. King, a precious driving force during the civil rights era, a critically influential figure in advocating for justice through nonviolence acts, his courage, perseverance, and grit continue to inspire, motivate, and empower young advocates like us to engage in acts of social justice and shed light on some of the voices who have been ignored and disregarded.
On behalf of the Center for Multicultural Student Services, JMU Athletics, and the Office of the President, we would like to welcome you to the 38th Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Keynote. As a collective community, we are deeply honored to make time to reflect on our history around civil rights and contemplate our current issues and uplift and inspire each other. This year's theme for MLK Week is Transforming Struggle into Strength. Mental health is a shifting world.
Whether it was Dr. King writing his commencement speech in 1965 or young advocates protesting in the streets in 2020, decades later show us that the impact still resonates with us and other significant trailblazers are with us. And as a new generation, we continue to stand on their shoulders by implementing change, empowering, and uplifting our communities. Through Dr. King's blueprint, we will remain awake through the revolution of change and transform struggle into strength.
This evening, we invite you to reflect on his legacy and consider the ways in which Dr. King's values manifest in our modern quest for equity. As you watch our breathtaking performers and hear the wise words from tonight's keynote speaker, we ask that you imagine how impactful you can be now in this moment. Imagine a community that exudes liberation, peace, and courage to all individuals. To begin, we would like to welcome DeAndre Powell, Associate Director of the Center for Multicultural Student Services, Devontae Garcia, Every Nation Campus and CMSS Student Assistant, and Chase Tucker, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Chapter President, to sing the Black National Anthem. Please help me welcome them, and please stand if you are able.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Dre, Chase, and Devontae. At this time, we would like to welcome JMU Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Tim Miller, to the stage to offer the official welcome. Dr. Miller is the Vice President for Student Affairs at James Madison University and has served in this role since June 1st, 2018. He's a double Duke, having earned his bachelor's degree in political science and criminal justice in 1996 and his master's degree in college student personal administration in 2000 from James Madison University. He earned his doctorate in executive leadership from the George Washington University, and his research focused on the decision-making of university presidents. He has served at James Madison University, the University of South Carolina, and the George Washington University during his 20-year career and has managed a wide range of university functions in these roles. Please welcome Dr. Tim Miller.
Good evening. It's great to have all of you here this evening. I'm excited to be a part of this program every single year. I'm always astounded when you hear at the very beginning of this the number of the years the university has done this. And want to first honor the amazing team in the Center for Multicultural Student Services and Accessibility and Belonging for 38 years of honoring Dr. King here at James Madison University. I also want to thank our leadership at this university that has continued and will always continue to honor Dr. King, not just today, but on our work every single day. While there is a week here at JMU and a day, I would like to, I know and I believe very strongly that the lessons learned from Dr. King resonate with us all year, every year. And I'm proud to be at a place that continues to honor that. And I want to thank President King for his leadership and the fact that I get to work with my colleagues in the senior leadership here to serve this institution every single day is a gift for me, and I love that we get to do this. And lastly, I'm incredibly proud that we've chosen Chamique Holdsclaw to be here with us. I had the privilege of hearing her speak at George Washington University several years ago and found her message to be transformative for our students and for our staff. And I think in many ways, if you don't know her history, I ask that you look it up and learn more, because you're seeing someone who transformed how we look at athletes, both in college and in professional. She changed the game outside of the game and changed how we saw athletes and saw them as whole people, not just as these untouchable folks on the court or on the field. So I know we have a lot of our student athletes here today. You're about to hear from a trailblazer that changed how we saw you. And I hope that you will hear that message and absorb that. And as someone married to a former student athlete here at JMU on the women's basketball team, this is a transformative night. It's an amazing night for all of us. Jamie really wished that she could have been here. So I appreciate the team for putting this together and appreciate very much that Chamique was here to talk to all of you. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Miller, for that warm and heartfelt welcome. We would be remiss to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. without mentioning his beloved fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was founded Tuesday, December 4th, 1906, on the campus of Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, marking it the first Black Greek-led organization. As a proud brother of Alpha Phi Alpha, Dr. King exemplified the fraternity aims of manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind throughout his life and his work. His manly deeds were demonstrated through his unwavering courage and leadership in the face of adversity, leading the civil rights movement with a commitment to justice and equality. Dr. King's dedication to scholarship was evident in his academic excellence, earning a doctorate in theology and using his knowledge to inspire and change and force advocacy for civil rights. Finally, his love for all mankind was the cornerstone of his philosophy of nonviolence, tirelessly working to uplift communities and fight for the inherent dignity of every individual. Dr. King's legacy as a trailblazer for justice and equality reflects the values and principles upon which Alpha Phi Alpha was built, reminding us all of the power of service, leadership, and unity in creating a better world.
Thank you, Kofi, for those words. We would now like to continue our program with a poetic reading. We are honored to have two guests from Furious Flower Poetry Center, Lauren Allen and Benga Atasina. Lauren K. Allen is the author of two collections of poetry, Difficult Fruit, Honeyfish, and the chapbook, Unbecoming Greta, as well as co-editor of Furious Flower, Seeding the Future of African American Poetry. Her poetry appears in numerous publications, including the New York Times, The Atlantic, Miss Muse, Tin House, and the Caribbean Writer, among others. Allen was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago and currently resides here in Harrisonburg, where she is a professor of English at James Madison University and an executive director of the Furious Flower Poetry Center. Benga Asena is a Nigerian scholar, poet, and essayist. He received his MFA from New York University and his PhD from Florida State University. He is the inaugural Mellon Foundation Postdoctoral Fellow in Global Black and Diasporic Poetry at the Furious Flower Poetry Center at James Madison University.
Please welcome Lauren and Benga.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to read this poem that I wrote many years ago for an occasion such as this, MLK Day celebration. You'll realize the context of it, and I celebrate every year, all year, right, as was said earlier, all the things that Dr. King accomplished, and keep hoping that we're able to make his vision more and more real. Martin Luther King Jr. mourns Trayvon Martin. For you, son, I dreamed a childhood unburdened by hate, a boyhood of adventure, skinned knees and hoops, first loves and small rebellions. I dreamed you whole and growing into your own manhood, writing its definitions with your daily being. I dreamed you alive, living. For you, America's African heir, I dreamed a future of open doors, of opportunity without oppression, of affirmation and action. I dreamed Oprah and Obama. I dreamed Colin and Condoleezza. I dreamed doctors and dancers, lawyers and linebackers, models, musicians, mechanics, preachers and professors, police, authors, activists, astronauts, even all black as Jesus is. I dreamed you dapper, the black skin of you polished to glow, your curls, your kinks, your locks, your bald, your wild, all your freshly barbered, all beautiful. I dreamed you wearing whatever the hell you want. and not dying for it. I dreamed you, brother, a world softened by love, free from the fear that makes too early ancestors of our men, turns our boys into targets, headlines, and ghosts. I had a dream that my children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Sweet song of my sorrow, sweet dream deferred. For you, gone one, I dreamed justice, her scales tipped away from your extinction, her eyes and arms unbound and open to you at last. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to read you a very, well, maybe not too brief poem, but just one poem about grief and migration and fatherhood. I carried my father across the sea. He was a child. He was dead. He was the shaft of a long-tailed astrapia. He was a forest of bruise. He wore a door on his face. He wore the black suit of his wedding. The square pocket was still full of his vows. He was light to carry. His burdens and vows had bled out of him. He was heavy with the responsibility of the dead. What sort of a son leaves his father chained to fatherhood? I lifted and propped him up with my frame. I measured the length of him with my length. His feet stuck in sea sand, his weak knees. His arms gripped my sides. As the currents rose, the collar on his broken neck flared into a float. The gash the surgeon's knife left on his head became a halo. It signaled in the dark. I put my nose to his nose. I put my finger in his mouth. I tied his IV tubes, now a human gill, around our waist and swam in the vein of the water. Look, as fins in the waves said, a son carries a father. Death is not silence. It is where I hear you most clearly. What sort of a son leaves his father's body chained to the dark grievance inside the earth? I carried my father on my back. I felt the bracing inside his afterlife, an immigrant heart on the skin of my spine. He wore his face as a door he promised to open to me. He bled out his vows. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren and Benga, for those incredible readings. We'd like to welcome Atiana Williams, JMU's basketball player, to the stage. We are grateful for our partnership with athletics and the JMU's women's basketball team. Atiana is a sophomore health science with a major with a pre-med minor and medical Spanish minor. Please help me welcome Atiana Williams to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I have the honor today of introducing Chamique Holdsclaw. Chamique Holdsclaw is a powerful mental health advocate, Olympic gold medalist, and WNBA Hall of Famer. Hailed as the female Michael Jordan, Chamique Holdsclaw was a basketball superstar. From leading the University of Tennessee Lady Volunteers to 3 straight NCAA national championships with her team under legendary Coach Pat Summitt, to the Olympics, to the WNBA, nearly no one has had more focus or drive on the court. And yet underneath, she was pushing down mental health issues that eventually led to a total mental and physical breakdown. Chamique suffered from serious bouts of depression and manic episodes. After a long journey of learning to manage her illness, Chamique has come back just as fierce. As a speaker, her talks are incredibly inspiring and have helped many open up about their own mental health issues or assisting those dealing with loved ones who suffer to seek support. Chamique was raised in Queens, New York, in a middle-class neighborhood. But with her parents no longer able to take care of her, she moved in with her beloved grandmother in the projects in Astoria. Her grandmother's rule to keep her and her brother on track: get involved in something good. For Chamique, it was basketball. To forget her problems, she focused on her game and learned the skills that made her a powerhouse. After her illustrious college basketball career, which included several All-American honors and countless other awards, Chamique would go on to be the #1 pick in the 1999 WNBA draft by the Washington Mystics. Her rookie season was capped with the WNBA Rookie of the Year award, as well as her first of 6 WNBA All-Star appearances. In 2000, she had the honor of winning an Olympic gold medal with Team USA at the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. Please join me in welcoming Chamique Holdsclaw to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. It's quite an honor to be here today to celebrate the amazing legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and to discuss the connection with Dr. King and building on college campuses. Now, for myself, before we get into all that, I really want to talk about my personal connection to Dr. King. My family, every summer, between my mom and dad, we would take trips to the South, either South Carolina or Alabama. My mom's side of the family is from a small town called Camden, and today it's probably a population of 1,700 people. So when we wanted to do it big, we would ride over to Selma, Alabama. That's a population currently about 17,000 people, and we would eat at restaurants and walk around, and we will always stop at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And for those of you who don't know, 1965, I think it was March 7th, that was the Bloody Sunday. I have family members who witnessed people crossing that bridge getting beat, getting tear gas thrown at them, but still they marched. And for this country and this nation, it was televised live, so it pulled on the heartstrings. And with that day occurring, shortly after, the Voters' Right Act passed, and it prevented racial discrimination in voting. Every year I went back, and we would walk with my aunties and some of my uncles and stuff. As a young kid, I didn't know really what it meant. I would see tears come down their faces and a clenching of hands. And I think about this was the environment in which my grandmother, in the time that she grew up. So when I went to go live with my grandmother, my childhood, my parents, my dad, let me take a second to tell you about him. My dad was living as a young, black man with undiagnosed schizophrenic disorder. And my mother, I can only imagine what she had to deal with when she had 2 kids. And mental health wasn't something that we talked about in my household. So ultimately, they masked their issues. When my dad used to have such severe hallucinations, and one time I heard him say, "I'm gonna chop them up and put them down an incinerator," and I would hear stuff like this, and I'm like, well, I thought it was just the drinking. So I remember that day when the decision was made that we could not live with my parents anymore. They had to get help. Here I was leaving the comfort of my home and my environment to go live with my grandmother, and it was a whole different beast. I was the new kid. I was the private school kid now living in the inner city. But for me, I was dealing with a lot of, we'll say, trauma at that time, because as a young kid, even when they're telling you this household is dysfunctional, that's my mom and dad. I love them. I want to be with them. So as I was trying to navigate through that, my grandmother, got me some help with therapy, and I was diagnosed at a young age of 11 with clinical depression. That's around the time I also found the game of basketball. So basketball for me, I always say there's athletes who need the game and athletes who just play. I was one of those who really needed it because I needed that structure. I needed something that was my own. My grandmother though, if y'all had a good grandmother, grandmothers rule with an iron thumb. She was about discipline and structure. She's like, this is a bad neighborhood, so I need you to follow, the protocol I'm going to implement in your life. And that was one led with discipline and structure. So I wasn't just able to hang out. Only reason I was able to go to that basketball court was because she could watch me out her window. I would go, my grandmother was a servant leader. She led with kindness, love, empathy, with healing. And I was just so taken back how she was always just so gracious and giving to neighbors. My grandmother was the chief of medical records at the hospital. I don't think my grandmother, ever made more than, $45,000 in a year. But she was always welcoming in her community and gave people her last. Back in Alabama, my grandmother grew up Lutheran. And this was her faith, and this is what she introduced me to. So when I was younger, I went to Lutheran schools, and I learned that whole doctrine. But my grandmother said, hey, you're going to play basketball. If you're going to play, you're not going to miss church. So I had to go to church every Sunday. I also had to be a person of service. So my grandmother made me participate every Tuesday and sometimes on the weekends because she headed the soup kitchen and she fed the homeless. And I remember my grandmother's telling me things like, I don't want to hear you comment about the way somebody smells, about the way somebody looks. These people, you treat them with dignity. You treat them with respect. You listen. You have conversations. She says everybody's like one step away for something bad happening in life. And that's what I learned. I'm 11 years old, 12, and, making conversations. But down in that soup kitchen in the hall, it was a quote from Dr. King, and it said, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And I remember seeing that and looking at that as a young kid, and I'm like, okay, I can be great. I'm watching my grandmother, and my grandmother would tell me things. She would tell me, when you plant the seeds, they will grow. And she goes, you have to learn to invest in your community. And as a young person, I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, all right, I want to do my schoolwork. Oh, Chamique, if education is the future, she goes, right here, she used to tell me, she's like, not where you from. Because when I moved to the projects, even though with my mom and dad, I lived in a middle class area, when I moved to the projects, I was met with judgment. People, oh, you live there? But my grandmother, she would tell me things, is where you're going. This is going to help build character. It's going to allow you to see the world from a different scope. And it really did. So I learned to plant those seeds to invest in community. Now, Boys and Girls Club, during my time playing early on, it was before the whole girl power movement, right? So, I was out there with the boys. A couple of my friends, like Ron Artest, Lamar Odom, they went on to the NBA, and some of my other friends, but I was better than all these guys. And I was better than all of them, and they'll tell you, like, they're my biggest advocates. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why can't I play with the boys? Now, at the Boys and Girls Club, it was the girls. We had to do crafting. We had to stay in the rooms and do all the girly stuff, right? But I wanted to be with the boys because I love sports. Finally, these young men, they didn't know what they were doing at the time, but they advocated for me. And they were like, man, she's better than us. Can you let her play basketball? And the gentlemen agreed. And I just remember, it was a room at the Boys and Girls Club we would go to. We would play, what's it called? It's like billiards. Is it Chinese pool or something? It's a different game of pool. And in the room, you had pictures of Rosa Parks, Dr. King, and guess what? This quote again, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. So this was in my mind. This was something that was planted. I didn't find out. I gotta laugh about this. I had told a friend, I didn't find out until I was like 33 or 34 years old that there was more to the quote. The quote is actually, everybody can be great because anyone can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. a soul generated by love. And Dr. King delivered these words, and he was quite the wordsmith, 2 months before he was assassinated. So the impact in my life, I go on, and I went on to create a beautiful art. I look at basketball as an art. And it was my creative piece of movement. I used to do ballet, and I tried to bring that to the court. I wear a size 13 men's shoe. So I just thought about being light on my feet and being fluid. And by doing that, I was able to amaze crowds. I went on after winning 4 state championships, and I went on to play for the University of Tennessee. Now in my class, I was the #1 recruited athlete. And a lot of opportunity. I had good grades because grandma didn't play with that. Education is the key. Education is the key. This is going to change your reality. Plus, she said I had expensive taste, so I had to go to school and make good grades so I can afford the things that I want in life. But I go into University of Tennessee, and the reason I chose University of Tennessee, I could have went anywhere pretty much I wanted. I chose there because I wanted to be mentored by this woman named Pat Summitt. And she is a Hall of Fame women's basketball coach. We lost her maybe like 8-10 years back. And it has really impacted us all. But I remember going to Tennessee. I was excited, right? I had this opportunity to leave New York City, this place of my comfort, and take on a new adventure. And my family was really thrilled. But I get there, guys, and week 1, I'm excited. The high, the energy. Week 2, same thing. It's like, whoa, man, this is cool, new friends. The 3rd week, I wanted to leave. I did not connect to this environment. It was very different. Now, my friends tease me. They call me the private school kid. They used to tease me in the hood when I lived with my grandmother because I was the kid wearing the uniform, and I didn't really go to school with a lot of kids in the area. But I will say, growing up in New York, I had this cultural experience. It's amazing. I have friends that were Polish, Italian, Irish, some of my best friends Korean. I was eating sushi in school for International Day. I didn't even know I was eating sushi until I grew up. Like, I was just exposed to a lot. And I'm here in Knoxville in the South, and I'm looking around, and I remember one day I make the comment in study hall. I said, where are all the Asian and Hispanic people? And they said, in the international students. So me being a New Yorker, I said, so you telling me the people, they only hang out in this building? And this girl jumps up. She said, obviously, you didn't pay attention. The University of Tennessee is 98% Caucasian, 2% other, and the 2% other is engineers from Memphis and student athletes. And that's when I had my aha moment. Because when you're young, you're looking for your tribe, right? You're looking for your connection. You want people that you can relate to, people that make you people that make you feel seen, heard. And for me, it was an out-of-body experience. So luckily for me, I had a really good rapport with my coach. And Coach Summitt, she checked in on me. She says, how's everything going? And I said, I hate it. I said, I'm going to go closer to home, to University of Connecticut, go play for Gino. I can't do this. And she told me, taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes, we have to, it's okay, you're going to fear the unknown, but you can't let it knock you off your pace, And so she told me, hold on now. She goes, you got teammates. She goes, the other 12 or 13-year girls, they're not all from Tennessee. 2 were from Tennessee. It was California. It was Oregon. It was Indiana. It was Texas. It was people all over that wanted the same thing, to play for this university, to go to school here, to educate themselves here. And I feel one of the best things was be mentored by her. So she says, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to teach you what a sisterhood is about. And I'm glad that I stayed and I waited around, because that was what I needed. That was my group. Those were my people. And I learned that blood just doesn't make you family. It's the people that show up and show out for you in your life. But you got to plant the seeds. See, I learned that, like I said, from my grandmother, and you got to build community. So what I learned as a young person, let me go home with these people. I drove a teammate one time. It was a long time, Michelle Snow. God bless her. We drove to Florida. And I got to see how she lived. You know, I got to see how she was really struggling because her mom had lupus. You know, I went home with my teammate, you know, Kelly Jolly, who was recently the coach at Tennessee. And when I went home with her, Sparta, Tennessee, she says, I got to tell you something. There's no black people. And, you know, she goes, it's going to be different. But, you know, my family, my dad's a coach. We're a big deal there. And I went there. And guess what? I rode horses. I was open. You know, I learned about hay, baling hay, and all these things. And I'm just adding it to my book of experience, right? And I'm telling people, you know, telling them about New York, and everybody, oh, New York is dangerous. I got tired of hearing that. Oh, I'm like, we have neighborhoods, we have suburbs. You guys are just hearing about the city. But again, I started planting these seeds, and I have my family, you know, my community. And so I won 3 out of 4 championships, got my degree in political science. And for me, in the back of my mind, I always knew after sports, you know, because it was happening so fast, a lot of success and things. I said, oh man, I just wanted to serve my community, whatever that looked like. You often show, they show this depiction of African Americans and the community lady. It's always like the big mama, sort of like Medea. And I think sometimes like sort of cartoonish, but yeah, that's what I wanted to be, the big mama. I wanted to be the person that the kids felt that they could come to. I wanted to be the person that would inspire them and keep them moving. Because I remember Dr. King, something that he said was, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But no matter what, you gotta keep moving. And so I had a lot of success. Like it's crazy looking back, man. I had my own signature shoe from Nike. Got to do commercials with Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Got my own street on campus. And I was slowly building my legacy. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted more. Like, what do I want to do? I did so much great work in the community, feeding the homeless, giving back, but I wanted more. It has to be a different purpose for me. But all along, you never know when life is going to life. And we know that term, life will life. And my mental health started failing me. And it's by the grace of God, and I get kind of choked up thinking about it. By the grace of God that I'm here. I was so low functioning at a point in my life. I couldn't even get out of bed. I struggled with suicide ideation. You know, I've been under suicide watch. I tried to take my life because I lost hope, you know? And it's not, I had great family support, even in the midst of my parents' struggle. My family, we love hard. We hug each other. We embrace each other. I don't know what happened. It was just all of a sudden this disconnect of reality. And I remember I'm in DC, first couple years, and I'm balling. This is not affecting my basketball. I'm doing all the things that I need to do. And I'm the face wherever I go, you know. It's like a Chamique Holdsclaw, and it was cool, you know. I'm meeting friends, you know. I guess I'm considered sort of like a celebrity, and I get to do all these cool things. But there was a part of me that was just dying. And that's when I had a manic episode. And my friends tell me I was all across ESPN ticker. She's missing in action. And unfortunately, when people don't know what's going on with you, we know people create stories. And to have to read things later, like I had Lou Gehrig's disease, I was pregnant. And it was just a bunch of stories. was very disheartening because I've always given people respect, embraced people with kindness and love. And so all of a sudden, I was here. And sometimes when you're there, people would try to smack you back down. But for me, I had to get brave because when I say there's a lot of people that suffer in silence when it comes to mental health. And I was one of those people. And I sat there and I said, I could do this. I got to do this. And I asked God, I said, get me through this. Get me to the other side. I'm going to serve. And for me, I did so. But I couldn't do it alone. It took all that community that I talked about building. It took my childhood friends, everybody reaching out to me, sort of like an intervention, because when I was going through it, guys, they would try to corner me. I'm hopping on planes, going to Spain. I'm out the country. I didn't want to deal with it. I ran, you know. I didn't understand. I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable, so I ran. But when I started really working my process of healing, because I wanted to be better. It was scary, the things that was happening to me in my life, and you guys can all go read about this. Actually, it was very scary, and I knew that if I didn't get the help, I wouldn't be here. So I go. Sally Jenkins, who's a reporter for Washington Post, she calls me and she's like, Coach Summitt is worried about you. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. I was sick. I was all over the place. I drove to Coach Summitt because that's Mama Summitt. And I sat there across from her, and I'm like, oh, my God, she's going to rip me a new one. And she said, Chamique, I've always worried about you. And I've had many talks with your grandmother. She grabbed my hand. She said, it's going to be okay. The only way you get back on your feet is to hang with people that know your character, people that genuinely love you. She said, you got to get rid of all the noise. Let me tell you, I changed my number. I started really investing in therapy. I'm doing the hard work, working through my childhood trauma, trying to work through this anxiety thing, this mental health thing that has a hold on me. I wanted to be healthy. And you know who was calling me to check on me? It was my teammates, college teammates, community. Tamika Catchins, Tamika Randall, Kyra Elzie, come stay with me. I got you. It was my teammates that I invested that sweat equity with and built with. It was community leaders from my community in college, business people, big business people. Like, what do you need? I have a house here, I have this. Do you need to get away? Like, so many people helped me get to where I am today, and to sit here, stand here as a Black woman that's been through these things, you know what I'm saying? To be able to be transparent, to have this stage. I can't believe sometimes the blessing that's been over my life to be able to do this hard work, and it can get hard, and every story, every kid is not a success story, but to do this work for colleges and universities, for our U.S. military, for our professional sports teams, to our communities. When I tell you I've seen the whole landscape, and it's a scary place, scary place. I've been to every state in our great nation besides, I think it's Idaho, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota, and those I'm going to knock out this summer. And I say that because a lot of times a hospital will call me to come in, and I have friends that, CEOs of hospitals, they're like, oh, I need you to come to Oklahoma. And I go to Oklahoma, he's like, hold up, don't nobody look like you. They don't really see Black people around here, but I need you to come. I'm telling you, you're going to change lives. And I go there and work with the police. I worked on dairy farms because I had to learn stuff about them having to put down cows. You have people that every day have to shoot a cow in the head, the mental health, so they're giving them mental health support. I had to learn about places that are drug pipelines, and the police having certain prejudices, and teaching them how to address people with mental illness. It's been a whole process, and it's because I'm able to do this because of my community. But when you think of Dr. King's legacy, we're going to talk about his key pillars of work: equality and justice as a universal human right, his belief in the power of community and collective action, the importance of opportunity and breaking cycles of inequality. And his connection to education is Dr. King believed education was a tool for empowerment and social change, just as my grandmother believed. His vision of desegregation and the role of schools as places to build unity and understanding. He said, the function of education is to teach one to think immensely and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. So all of this ties in, and it helps create an inclusive and supportive campus environment. Now, the importance of belonging on campus. Like I said, belonging to me is being seen, heard, and valued. And when you're not seen and you're not valued and you don't feel like you're being heard, number one is the impact on your mental health. The sense of belonging affects these students and their well-being. Retention rate, right? I don't feel comfortable, so peace, I'm out. Then that affects the success rate, and it creates a culture that people don't want to be a part of. Number two, cultural and identity representation. The role of diverse representation in creating spaces where all students feel seen and heard. Now, My college experience, I talked to you, and I was like a fish out of water. But I had someone that made me feel heard and someone that made me feel seen, and that was my coach. And these conversations that she had with me, it wasn't just to me. She would call us in as a team about things that occurred, you know, whether it was racial stuff, whether, you know, it was actions of some people on the team. It started maybe with me and saying, oh my God, I want to transfer. And she would bring it up to the team, you know, because we have to take care of each other. You know, these are my sisters. If she's feeling one way, it's my duty to support her and try to help understand her. You know, I may not be able to totally connect and understand, but I can be there and listen and learn, and we can grow together. Number 3 was the intersection with Dr. King's vision and education. Connecting education and belonging was MLK's dream of equitable access to education and opportunity. Now we know with everything, there's challenges. And number 1, we have to deal with systematic barriers. We have to address issues like racial discrimination, socioeconomic disparities, and microaggressions that undermine belonging. Now, I've been doing this a long time, it seems. I retired from basketball in 2011, so, you know, I've been out on campus, colleges, community stuff, a lot, you know, over the years, and every situation, so many situations are daunting, especially when you have, you know, a school that may move a certain way, and then the outside environment, the community around, you know, sort of spills in. It could be some troubling times, but, you know, racial discrimination. And I have to share something with me because it follows me through my life. I was a sophomore at the University of Tennessee. At this time, I'm a pretty big deal on campus. You know, most of the people, I say my freshman year, I was I guess a big deal. Me and football legend Peyton Manning, and so people knew who we were. My faces everywhere. But I used to have this issue, man. Every time I went to Dillard's, the department store, it was like the people following me around. And I'm like, oh my God, who do I go talk to? Coach Summitt, AKA the mayor. And best believe, she made a call to those people over at Dillard's. And then I would hear stuff. You hear stuff like, oh, that's the basketball head, Chamique Holdsclaw. And then they turn away. And it was just something that was eerie about that. First time in my life I was called the N-word was after a University of Tennessee football game. And, you know, we had just won a big game against Florida. And I'm walking down with some of my classmates, other students. And it was one of my white teammates and 2 other black teammates. And some guys roll by in a Jeep, and they usher, like, what's up, N-word, and I was taken back. And it took me a couple of days to process, because you heard stories. I heard stories growing up. My family's from the South. You hear stories even to this day from my white friends when I got to college. Oh, you know, don't go near this place. It's sundown, you know, I don't go near there. You know, I was living in Huntsville, Alabama a couple of years ago, and it's a town before Birmingham, and one of my classmates, she was like, oh, you don't want to stop there. Don't stop there for anything. And so those places exist, but when they called us that, it's something that like fired up inside of me, and I became like really, really angry. And I said, you know what, I gotta let this go. And so we brought it into the team, and I talked to them about it. I said, this didn't make me feel good. And people started opening up about their journey and their family and how, you know, their grandfather thought this way. One teammate told me about, oh, my grandfather loves you. But yeah, we have like the Redneck Olympics. And he wants to invite you, but I'm like, Grandpa, you cannot say colored. You know, but again, this is a conversation we're having out of love and understanding. They really made me feel better because they made me feel, they allowed me to be heard. They didn't try to fix it. You know, they shared their walk of lives, and together we came as a unit. There was another time, I would say, so it's been 2 big experiences. And when I say that, I've lived all over the world, you know, playing basketball. I've lived 3 seasons in Poland. I've lived in Russia, Korea, you know, Poland, Dzień dobry, and for my Polish-speaking people. And I lived in these places, and again, I ran into all these years, 11-year career, I ran into one incident overseas. But the situation that happened when it was with my good friend Sydney Masters, and we were leaving, we went to go watch another sports team compete up the road at a college. And it got dark, and this is the time, we didn't have GPS, y'all. We had maps. And we got the map, and we got lost. So all of a sudden, I see like these flags and not nice words on the side of this gas station. And Cindy, my girl, she's white. I'm like, Cindy, I'm driving. There's no way that I'm stopping here, but we need gas. And we don't know when we're gonna find the next gas station. I'm like, I'm not getting out to pump gas. She thought I'm joking. I said, Sydney, do you not see that? So she gets out to go pump the gas, and I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I'm looking, and we couldn't do the tap or to pay the card. You had to go pay back in the day. So we go, she pays, and I see her to sit, God listens to her. She get back in the car. I said, what did he say? She wouldn't tell me. I said, what did he say? And he said, basically, like, you and that girl, y'all better get this gas and keep it moving if you know what's good for you. And it took her like 3 days, and she was just like, I just didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to freak you out, and I didn't want to scare you. But those are the things, and microaggressions. That's a big part of what we deal with as minorities. And it can happen to anyone, but you have the inappropriate jokes, heard those malicious comments. It could be a professor scheduling a project on your religious, holiday that they know you celebrate, or stereotyping, assuming that a Spanish-speaking person or a foreign person doesn't know how to speak English, or mocking them. Again, those things exist. And we also have another challenge is isolation in higher education, because you have a first-generation students. I'm first generation in my family. And you have also students who are putting themselves to school that really don't partake in the activities because they're working hard, to make this a reality for them to be college graduates. You have non-traditional schooling. College campuses have so many different people, older, coming back, trying to figure it out. But you have students, especially from marginalized background, they may feel excluded at a PWI, and that's a primarily white institution. And I'm gonna share a situation. I'm at a power speaking, right? So sometimes they divide it. If I'm doing mental health programs, football is a huge team. So I might do football, I might do the rest of the student athletes. But on this day, this school is Power 4 school, phenomenal facilities, huge. So everybody's in there, man. You probably got like 500 athletes, everybody's there. We had a great event, great Q&A, everybody sharing experiences, talking about family. That's what you young people do. You guys are the change agents. You're not operating in fear of stigma so much anymore. You're willing to risk it all, talk about your emotions and feelings, because you see so many brave people do that in your reality, in your world today. But this day, I had bonded with the program director. She was a New Yorker, right? So before we know the same people, we're excited. She's, I'm taking you to eat afterwards. So program finished, I hang around, take some pictures, because I'm a fan too of some athletes and young people. So I'm like, I'm gonna get my flicks in, this is cool. And then they leave, and she's angry. I've been with this lady the whole day. She's upset. I can see something. She just finished talking to her superior, and she said something to me. She said, I'm just so upset. She just asked me, why did I book a trip and to go to this conference? The conference was about first generational students, how to better help them and assist them, right? And she said, you would think. She asked me, Chamique, she said, you saw the audience, like I can see all of you, And she said, what did you see? I said, she's telling me, what was the makeup? I said, well, it's probably like sports, so it's probably like 80%. I just took a guess, minorities, right? And she said, yeah. And she goes, you want to know something? 50% of those kids are first generation students. So you get what I'm saying? This is this leader, this woman who is the head of this, and you don't know the demographic, whatever, that you're trying to reach and trying to help, trying to support. You're supposed to know those type of things. So then it's the polarization, division, the impact of political and social tensions on campus communities. My grandfather fought in the Vietnam War. And my grandfather always told me, fought for your liberty, your freedoms. You better do well in school. You know, he was an old head. You know, the right to choose. I fought for free speech, all these things. And people, vote for who you want to vote for, believe in what you want to be, but in higher education, be respectful of each other. There doesn't have to be any bullying. It doesn't have to be any racial tension and you know, talking to people about being immigrants. Unfortunately, this goes on, and I've been a part of some heated discussions and a lot of tears shed, and you know, young people not having a space to feel heard and seen, and it's pretty tragic when you think about, you know, what goes into these universities and colleges, these places of higher education, you know. So with all that said, we have to think about building a community and belonging, right? So we have to foster connection. It's so important. So whether mentorship programs, my favorite student-led organizations, I've met some great young people doing some great things on campuses across the U.S., amazing, and peer support groups. Now, when you talk about peer support groups, I was not a believer. I used to think, oh my God, never am I sitting around people and sharing dark things in my life. I don't want to be judged. And that's probably one of the main things outside of my community of people that probably saved my life, because my therapist told me to go to this one. And I went to this group, and I'm sitting there, and I'm angry inside. But, you know, people go around and share. And I met some of the most intelligent people. I mean, neuroscientists, you know, doctors and stuff, people that were just so smart. I met I would say a world-renowned doctor, right? But social anxiety. So this individual couldn't work in an office or be around a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? But just great minds. So it taught me to look at people differently and not to judge. And, you know, for me, mental health is such a spectrum. You know, you have people struggling, you know, with different things. Different people are impacted by triggers differently. It just taught me to empathize and have a little bit more understanding. And also, next we have to do in building communities of belonging, you have to promote dialogue. You know, you have to have spaces that talk about race, identity, and inclusion. You know, and I always say there's power in storytelling. It tells lives. All right, I hope, if you guys are not familiar with The Moth is a storytelling series, and it's phenomenal. Download the app, thank me later. You know, people sharing their stories, because think about it, the world, you know, is it like 300 and something million people, and many of us in here, we're not gonna see, I mean, US is 360 million, I think. We're not gonna get to all the pockets, some of us. And the thing is, you have people that, like I said earlier, don't have to engage with others. So we can learn about each other. You know, if you have somebody, I always tell student athletes, get out, meet people that have nothing to do with basketball, people that have nothing to do with your experience, people that have nothing to do with your sport. Just talk to them, get to know your campus. You know, people of different races and different backgrounds, because when I move around, you know, you have certain places where people can really stay in their pockets. I mean, in New York City, you can stay in your pocket. You know, there's a Chinatown, Little Italy, you know, you have your Irish section of town, you know, even we have an area, Crown Heights, the Hasidic Jews, and they have their community, and it's easy to want to stay in your pocket, but that's not the world. But we have to also inquire, we want to know, right? Higher education, we're the minds of the future. Get out, you know, meet people. Try to see what this world is really about. And next, policies and practices. You know, you guys have to encourage the university to adopt policies that prioritize equity, inclusivity, and mental health support. Now, I really believe this. People always have the power. Remember that you can be the change. You know, if something isn't right, something doesn't feel good in your core, and we all been put in situations, speak up. That's what Dr. King did. He risked his life for us to have freedoms, you know, opportunity to education. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little old school. You know, I go to some places, kids with the pants hanging down, pick up your pants, you know? Like, you don't know the value of a good handshake. Look people in the eye. You know, just go put some respect on it. You have too many people that have just fought for our rights in this country. You know what I'm saying? So we can live. And let me tell you, it's people, man, to have flavor. I call flavors when we all get together and we all can share our stories and journeys. That's a beautiful thing. You know, add culture to ourselves. It's amazing. And this is an amazing quote. Dr. King said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? What are you doing for others? I remember, man, being a star athlete, or even now as an adult, if I'm working doing a community projects, you know, they may throw it on my desk and say, hey, you know, Ms. Holdsclaw, we want you to do this. Could you get kids here? Could you do this? And I'm like, yes. Now, as an athlete, it will be times, you know, I'm expected to get my 20 and 10, you know, do what I got to do. My team relies on that. But there's times when I'm not making a shot. I'm awful. And my coach used to get on me. And it was a life lesson. It's like, when you're not able to do your job, take the focus off yourself and make other people better. Learning how to hand off. Get my player a shot. Build her confidence, you know what I'm saying? Play better on defense. Get some steals. Get the focus off of yourself. Do something for somebody else. And then in the end, when the whole defense at the end of the game is on me, expecting me to take the shot, I can pass it. And my teammate's going to knock it down. And that's the best feeling. Same thing in the business world. It's sometimes, you know, I got 2 young kids. I'm like, it's on my desk. I know I could do it. But I believe in, like, let me pass the responsibility. Let me build this person up. Let me give to this person. And now to see, you know, people tell me, oh, my God, I learned how to manage this project because you gave this to me. That's the thing. I never managed people before. You gave me that opportunity, and to see how it's helped them in his life. So at the end of the day, we want to remember, I'm going to leave you with this from Dr. King. We are all caught in an inescapable network, a mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Do me a favor. Take care of your community. Take care of each other. Love on each other. Try to meet each other with kindness and understanding, because at the end of the day, it goes a long way. And like I said, I wouldn't be here if people did not embrace me. You know, I could have been left, but people loved on me. And some people may think, oh, it's because you were a star athlete. It's not. It's bigger than that. It's because I planted those seeds. You know, I watched them grow. I loved on my community, and my community gave back. So be the change you want to see, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chamique, for that insightful keynote address. Can we please give another round of applause for that powerful message?
I hope you enjoyed our annual formal program honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I encourage everyone in the audience to reflect on how this program has made you feel. On behalf of Kofi and myself, it has been our honor being your co-hosts for the evening. I would now like to invite Dr. Bruce E. Mitchell II, Associate Vice President for Accessibility and Belonging and CMS Interim Director, to the stage to provide us with the closing remarks. He supports the Office of Disability Services, Center for Multicultural Student Services, JMU Valor, Religious Life, and SOGI. Dr. Mitchell earned a Bachelor of Science in Educational Studies and a Master's in the Art of Teaching from Kent State University, and a PhD in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies from West Virginia University. Please welcome Dr. Bruce E. Mitchell II.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. What a wonderful message from our speaker today. I needed that, and I'm inspired. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you. Let me first begin with a moment of gratitude. If it is one thing that I've learned and value in life, it is to always carve out time and embrace the opportunities to be in a state of thankfulness and acknowledgement of kindness and support from others. Much like Dr. King's journey, we do not do this work on our own. Despite moments of alone time pursuing a project, sitting at our desk in deep thought, pondering the strategies of how we best serve the needs of the people and the students we serve, there is always someone or a team of individuals, humanitarians, do-gooders, who are pulling for you, supporting you, putting themselves on the line, advocating for your work and showing up for you when you need it most. And for such a time as this, I would like to acknowledge a few of our leaders, partners, and supporters with gratitude. First, I wish to acknowledge the President and First Lady of James Madison University, President Charlie King. On behalf of Student Affairs, Accessibility and Belonging, and the Center for Multicultural Student Services, we wish to say thank you. Thank you for your support in general, for the work of CMSS, and for being a sponsoring partner for our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Public Talk. While I only have been at JMU a short time, I have heard great things about your support to our area from both Dr. Miller and Ms. Valerie Gant prior to her retirement. And for this, we say thank you. I would like to thank who I will call, for some reason today, it hit me, America's VP for Student Affairs. The one who travels to all the off-campus apartments to assess the road conditions and report back to the students to ensure their safe commute to campus. You know who it is, Dr. Tim Miller. As always, we thank you for your overwhelming support to our mission. To the mayor of Harrisonburg, the Honorable Dina Reed, thank you for your presence and continued support to the work we do. Dr. David Kirkpatrick, Vice President and Chief of Staff, thank you for your graciousness and partnership to make this program possible. To Matt Rohn, JMU's Athletic Director, thank you for collaborating with us this year, and our basketball coaches as well. Thank you to all of the hands that played a part in making today possible, including our amazing student leaders and performers on the program today. Kofi and Camille, thank you so much for a wonderful job emceeing tonight's program. And last but not least, I wish to acknowledge the work of the entire CMSS team who worked hard to make today possible. So I would like to thank them and tonight's lead organizer and associate director of the Center for Multicultural Student Services, Rebecca Barge. Let's give her a hand. Rebecca she gave me directions. I was not to bring her up on stage. She said, thank you, it's fine, so I will not bring her up, but thank you again, Rebecca, for all of your hard work. And our team from CMSS, our associate director team, our assistant director as well, we appreciate all of your hard work to put on such a wonderful program. Immediately following tonight's program, please join us in the Hall of Presidents above D Hall for a special reception with our amazing guest star, Chamique Holdsclaw. This is a great opportunity to capture a photo for your archives and mingle in a celebration of Dr. King with some delicious Airmark hors d'oeuvres. Last announcement. Tomorrow, Accessibility and Belonging presents The Mixer, a multicultural, interfaith, and identity-based student org mixer. The event will take place in the Festival Ballroom from 6 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. with a low stimulation or neurodivergent friendly time frame from 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. The Mixer will feature a taco bar, question and answer with student leaders, and information tables from many of our affinity groups, campus resources, and several of JMU's academic minors. To our students searching for that belonging that Chamique was talking about, there's a place for you at JMU. In closing, as we chart the course for a new year, let us be reminded of the words uttered so real tonight by Chamique Holdsclaw, a star, a WNBA legend, and pillar of her community and the world. Chamique, thank you for being you and for sharing your lived experiences with the world. Know that you are a positive example and a role model for so many people and young black women all over the world and all people of all over the world who see themselves in you. Keep inspiring the world. Let us be reminded of the words uttered by our beloved ancestor, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., on April 3rd, 1968, when he so eloquently delivered his famous "I've been to the mountaintop" speech the night before he was assassinated at the historic Mason Temple Church of God in Christ, the world headquarters for the largest Black Pentecostal denomination in the world. He said, "Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be," end quote. Let us be reminded that when your neighbor is weak, be strong for them. When care presses you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. It is okay to take a rest and still be the best. We must consider how to transform struggle into strength as we navigate our mental health in a shifting world. And so it is with this that I say to you, thank you for attending tonight and for being here. Be strong. Be strong. Why? Because you are strong. Thank you.